The absolute audacity. I stood there, numb at my father's funeral, as my stepmom, a woman who once called my mother a warm-up act, grabbed the mic, and in front of over 200 people, she declared she deserved everything my dad owned. And no, she didn't mean emotionally. She meant every single material thing. Every penny, every antique vase, every car, every stock, every property, even the one she used to mock for being too tacky to host brunch in. Apparently, tacky becomes tasteful once the original owner's 6 feet under. But I'm getting ahead of myself. This wasn't some spontaneous tantrum. No, this was the final, unbelievably bitter act of a long, drawn-out performance from a woman who probably thinks gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss is her personal mantra. Let's rewind a bit. My dad, Richard, known around town as Rick, or to anyone who wanted something from him, Richie built his wealth from scratch. Classic small-town success story, you know? Kid starts a landscaping business at 18, turns it into a real estate empire by 40, retires at 55. The rest of his life was spent alternating between golf and lecturing waiters on how to properly pour drinks. He was intense, he was proud, and often he was incredibly difficult to please. But he was my dad, and I loved him. My mom passed away when I was 12. She was everything he wasn't. Soft-spoken, easygoing, a bit artsy. She made these terrible clay sculptures we all pretended looked like animals. After she passed, something in him just hardened. Not immediately, I'll give him that. He really tried to be present. But grief doesn't make people nicer. It just makes them more of whatever they already were. For my dad, that meant working more, controlling more, talking less, and eventually dating a lot younger. Enter Vanessa. Oh, Vanessa. She wore 5-inch stilettos to my 8th grade parent-teacher night and then asked my homeroom teacher if there were AP classes in charm. Vanessa once brought a bottle of champagne to my high school graduation and loudly told the valet she was celebrating being the hot mom. And to this day, she has never, ever pronounced my name correctly. It's Tyler, not Tyler. I'm not a bathroom floor. I was 14 when she and Dad got married. She wore a white dress with a slit so high I had to pretend I didn't see her hip bone. My dad looked happy, or at least less brooding. I gave a polite toast. I like to think it was pretty gracious, considering. I didn't mention her calling my mom the warm-up act during a very awkward Thanksgiving dinner. I didn't bring up the time she told me my taste in music sounded poor. I just raised my glass, said something generic, and avoided eye contact with her aggressively contoured face. Vanessa was never outright abusive. She was too smart for that. She was passive-aggressive, which, if you think about it, is a lot more sustainable if you want to irritate someone over a long period of time. Her comments were always wrapped in faux concern. Are you sure that's the college you want to go to? I just worry you'll end up like those people. Or, I'm just saying, if I were your real mom, I'd tell you to floss more. Your teeth are your only asset. Over the years, we barely coexisted. I kept my distance, especially after I moved out. Dad would update me occasionally, mostly to say things like Vanessa's redecorating again, or Vanessa started a new cleanse. She's very tired. I never asked follow-up questions. I didn't want to know. Then, 2 years ago, Dad got sick. Pancreatic cancer. The silent, brutal kind. The kind that doesn't care how many homes you own or how many overpriced supplements you take. He called me from his home office. Vanessa was at a spa retreat, of course, and just said, "It's not looking good." I was there as much as I could be after that. I flew back and forth. I worked remotely. I sat with him in chemo waiting rooms, made bad jokes, watched old westerns with him, even though I hate them. Vanessa, to her credit, she showed up sometimes. Usually with the wrong kind of soup and unsolicited advice from some essential oils influencer. She cried a lot, loudly, but only when there were witnesses. My dad passed quietly on a Wednesday morning. I was there. She wasn't. She was getting a facial peel. I'm not even kidding. The funeral was the following Saturday. The whole town came out. Everyone had a story about Rick, how he helped them get a mortgage, how he paid their kids' tuition, how he let them stay rent-free for 3 months when they lost their job. My dad had his flaws, absolutely, but when it came to his community, he was incredibly generous. And now, everyone was here to say goodbye. The service was beautiful until it wasn't. We were wrapping up. People had said their pieces. I was sitting in the front row, numb, just holding a printed copy of the eulogy I didn't have the strength to read. And then Vanessa stood up. She was wearing black, of course, but in that Morticia Adams meets Real Housewives kind of way. Tight dress, lace gloves, giant sunglasses. She looked like she was auditioning for the role of tragic widow in a soap opera no one asked for. She walked to the microphone slowly, like she was on a runway, not in a church. Then she said it. That line, the one that hit me like a physical blow. I just want to say, she purred into the mic, I deserve everything he left behind. There was a beat. A collective. Did she just say that? Hush fell over the room. I was his wife, she continued, her voice gaining strength. His partner through good and bad. I was there. I comforted him. I cared for him. I kept this family together. I sacrificed so much. And now I believe, truly, that I deserve what he left. I do. She sniffled dramatically. And for anyone who thinks otherwise, well, maybe you didn't know him like I did. That's when I stood up, quietly. No yelling, no dramatic exit. I just calmly walked down the aisle, past the pews, past the florist's over-the-top arrangements, and out the church doors. But I didn't leave the premises. Oh no. I walked to my car, opened the glove compartment, and pulled out a crisp manila envelope. Inside, my dad's actual will. The one he signed a month before he passed. The one I witnessed, along with his lawyer and his nurse. The one that left everything to me, his only son. Not a dime to Vanessa. Not the cars, not the house, not even the dumb statue she insisted on putting in the garden that Dad secretly hated. He left her nothing. On purpose. He even wrote a line at the bottom, just for Vanessa, your love was always conditional. My love for my son never was. Yeah. So I walked back into the church. The second I stepped back inside, envelope in hand, the air shifted. I wasn't loud. I didn't stomp or throw the doors open like some kind of low-budget superhero. I just walked in slowly, deliberately, and maybe, just maybe, I paused for half a second longer than necessary before taking my next step. I wanted her to see me coming. Vanessa was still at the mic. She hadn't moved. Maybe she thought her speech had landed. Maybe she thought the crowd was silently admiring her boldness. Maybe she thought the stunned silence was respect. Wrong. It was disbelief marinated in second-hand embarrassment. I saw her eyes flit toward me. She blinked once, twice, then, oh, the flicker of recognition in her face when she noticed that envelope in my hand. Her jaw stiffened. Her knuckles whitened around the microphone. You know that moment in a horror movie when a monster realizes the victim has a weapon? Yeah, that. I didn't go back to my seat. I walked straight to the podium. Vanessa, I said, my voice calm and dry. If you're done auditioning for the Real Widows of Small Town County, I'd like to share something. She tried to laugh, tried to keep it light. Oh, Tyler, honey, I was just speaking from the heart. I held up a hand. Sure, this won't take long. The crowd, bless their nosy little souls, were now leaning in like they'd just been handed popcorn. I looked out over the audience. Familiar faces, old neighbors, family, friends, business partners. A few of my dad's golf buddies who I'm pretty sure didn't understand boundaries, but definitely understood drama. I wasn't planning on saying anything, I began. But since we've now entered the who deserves what portion of the funeral, I thought I'd clear something up. I unsealed the envelope with a soft rip, the kind that seems louder when everyone's holding their breath. This, I said, lifting the document just enough for her to see the familiar lawyer's letterhead, is my father's most recent will. Signed, notarized, and legally binding. Vanessa twitched. A small, involuntary thing, barely noticeable. But I noticed. I know you're all probably wondering what my dad decided. After all, he had a lot. Property, stocks, cash art. I paused, allowing a small smirk. Well, what he called art and what Vanessa called ugly brown furniture. I saw a few more smirks in the crowd. Good. Let them loosen up. It was a fair question to ask. I turned slightly, addressing the whole room now. But here's the thing. My dad knew exactly who stood by him during the hard times. Who showed up. Who sat with him while he was sick. While he was tired. While he was human, and not just some symbol of wealth. Vanessa opened her mouth, closed it, thought better. This will, I continued, tapping it lightly, does not leave anything to his wife. A gasp. No joke. A real gasp. Somewhere in the back, I heard someone whisper, "Oh my God." Not the house. Not the cars. Not even a landscaping tool she hated so much. Not a single dollar. A sharpened wail came from her left. Probably her friend Lorraine, who once tried to give me advice on manifesting money using crystals. Instead, I said, voice steady, he left it all to me. His son. I paused, looking directly at Vanessa. Which I suppose makes sense, since I'm the one who, how did you put it, Vanessa? Never truly appreciated what he built. Vanessa looked like she was trying to figure out if lunging at me would result in jail time. I turned to her. Not angrily, just sincerely. And you know what's really interesting, Vanessa? He wrote something. A message just for you. Her lips tightened. Her posture straightened like she was preparing to deliver a rebuttal on national television. I pulled the final page from the will and read aloud. To Vanessa, your love was always conditional. My love for my son never was. Please return anything I gave you during our marriage to my estate. You didn't love me. You tolerated me for the lifestyle. That's over now. Pure silence. Well, except for the one guy in the back who muttered, "Damn." Vanessa's mouth opened, then closed. Opened again. It was like watching a Windows 98 error screen. But this must be a mistake, she finally stammered. He promised. He told me. He said I would be taken care of. Oh, you will be, I said, folding the will slowly. There's a generous clause about a one-time payment for you to relocate. You know, to help you start fresh. Her eyes narrowed. How much? I smiled. 10,000. If silence could shatter glass, we'd all be in danger. She blinked rapidly. 10,000. 10,000? That's an insult. That's not even a handbag. Someone in the third row actually coughed to cover a laugh. Then I guess it's the perfect amount, I replied as calmly as I could manage without bursting into a sarcastic dance. Because this wasn't about love. Not for you. And he knew it. Her voice dropped low and venomous. You think this makes you the good guy? I shrugged. Nope. Just the one with the paperwork. And that's when she lost it. Tears, screaming, dramatic declarations of betrayal. She threw her gloves on the ground like she was challenging me to a duel in the 1800s. Someone tried to escort her out, some cousin of hers who I'm 90% sure was only there for networking reasons. But me? I just walked back to my seat, document in hand, like I hadn't just detonated a Gucci-wrapped firework in the middle of my dad's funeral. The real fun, though, started after the funeral. Because Vanessa didn't leave town. She didn't pack up her endless supply of monochrome activewear, her collagen shots, her 3 suitcases of shoes, and her ring light, and hop on the next flight to wherever people like her go to reinvent themselves. No, Vanessa stayed. And not in a humble, quiet, I'll mourn privately and reflect on my choices kind of way. She stayed like a raccoon who's found an unattended picnic. Bold, unashamed, and fully convinced that none of the food technically belongs to anyone yet. I found out 2 days later that she was still living in my dad's house. My house. I drove up the winding driveway, the same one Dad used to complain about paving every winter, and found her car. A glossy black convertible she could barely drive, but insisted made her feel powerful. Parked like she owned the place. One tire was slightly over the line. Typical. I didn't barge in. I rang the doorbell. I'm polite like that. A full 30 seconds passed. Then the door opened a few inches. She peered out, wearing a silk robe that didn't cover enough, and holding a smoothie that looked more cosmetic than edible. Her lips were pursed like I'd just interrupted her award-winning performance of Morning Widow drinks wheatgrass. "Tyler," she said, oozing fake civility. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" I looked past her. The foyer lights were all on. There was a half-eaten charcuterie board on the marble console table where Dad specifically told her not to leave food. And I swear I heard spa music playing from upstairs. "I'd like to come in," I said, seeing as this is my house now. She didn't move, just blinked slowly. "I'm still grieving," she said, as if that was a legal argument. "I need time, space, healing." "You've had 5 days," I said, "and also a facial." She narrowed her eyes. "I'm not leaving just because of your interpretation of the will." "It's not an interpretation," I replied. "It's a binding document, signed by a lawyer with witnesses. I'm one of them. Remember me? I'm the kid who didn't record your healing crystal chakra dance during Dad's last birthday dinner." That jab earned me a full door swing. She stepped aside dramatically and gestured like she was letting me into Buckingham Palace. "Fine, come in. But I think you'll find this whole king of the castle thing is going to be a lot harder than you think." Oh, I thought. She just wasn't going to let me know that yet. I walked in. The house smelled like eucalyptus and lemon water. The portrait of Dad, his favorite one, the one where he looked genuinely at peace, was missing from the wall. In its place was a mirror framed in what looked like seashells and gold spray paint. I turned to her. "Where's Dad's portrait?" She sipped her smoothie. "In storage." It was depressing. It was his house. She raised an eyebrow. "And now it's yours, right? So you can put up whatever gloomy things you want." She flounced into the living room and dropped onto the couch like she was expecting a fan to blow her hair back. I followed, mostly because I didn't trust her not to claim the entire home as a mourning sanctuary if I turned my back. She crossed her legs slowly, too slowly, like she was on a talk show. "So what now? Are you going to have me physically removed? You know, traumatize the grieving widow? There are laws, Tyler." I smiled. "Actually, yeah, there are. They're called probate laws, and right now you're trespassing." She scoffed. An actual, hands to her chest, high-pitched scoff. "Please. Rick would never have wanted this. He said I'd always be taken care of." "Sure," I said. "He said that before he got sick and realized you were logging into his investment accounts to check something every week." Her face twitched. "That was for us. For our future." "Your future was in his will," I countered. "You just didn't like what it said." We stared at each other for a long, slow second. She was calculating. Always had been. Behind the fake tan and passive-aggressive compliments lived a brain that ran on spreadsheets, schemes, and self-preservation. And I could tell she wasn't going to leave. Not yet, which meant I had to turn things up a notch. "Oh, by the way," I added casually, like it had just occurred to me. "The lawyer called. Said we can start liquidating assets by the end of the month." She stiffened. "Liquidating?" "Yeah. Stocks, cars, the lake house. This one too, if we decide to sell." Her mouth opened and closed. "You're not serious." "Oh, I am," I said, leaning down to pick up a magazine from the coffee table. "Unless you've got $10 million tucked into that green juice, this place isn't yours anymore." She stood. "You wouldn't dare." I looked up at her and smiled. "Vanessa, I dared to read the will out loud at your own husband's funeral. What makes you think I won't have movers here by next Thursday?" She didn't respond, not verbally anyway. But she glared at me with the kind of contempt usually reserved for exes and salad that arrives without dressing. Then she stormed upstairs, robe swishing, smoothie sloshing, ego cracking. I left without saying goodbye. And that was before I started phase 2. Because if she thought that was the end of the story, she had no idea what was coming next. I didn't go straight home that day. Instead, I parked a few blocks away at the old bakery where Dad used to take me for sticky buns every Sunday after church, back when life was simple and grief was something I thought only happened in movies. I ordered coffee, sat in the same corner booth, and pulled out my laptop. If Vanessa wanted to play hardball, she was going to learn very quickly that I brought a bat to the game. Phase 2 wasn't about screaming matches or tossing her Louis Vuitton luggage onto the lawn, though the image was tempting. It was about something far more effective. Humiliation, legally executed, publicly undeniable, thoroughly humiliating. And it started with the HOA. My dad's neighborhood had a strict homeowners association. It was his idea, ironically. Back when he helped develop the area, he pushed for high standards, well-kept lawns, noise control, no unsightly garden gnomes. His words, not mine. Vanessa hated it. Said it felt like living in a country club run by middle school hall monitors. I opened a folder labeled Dad's Estate and scrolled to the digital inventory list his lawyer had sent over. There it was, the deed to the house, officially transferred to my name. I forwarded it with a very polite, legally tight message to the HOA, letting them know that any and all infractions going forward were to be addressed to me, not Vanessa. Within 48 hours, they were knocking on her door about the unapproved alterations she'd made. Apparently, Vanessa had installed a set of LED-lit flamingo statues in the backyard as a vibe. Dad would have hated them. The HOA did, too. She got a $500 fine. Then another for excessive sound disturbances from her daily yoga sessions, which she insisted on conducting with outdoor speakers blasting Enya and someone shouting affirmations in German. But I wasn't done. Phase 3 was public but subtle. My dad's will had included a statement disinheriting Vanessa, and he insisted it be shared with the board of his charitable foundation. See, Dad wasn't just a real estate guy. He sat on the board of 6 local charities. Vanessa had used that for years to boost her image. Philanthropist, her Instagram bio said. Wife, dreamer, muse. I sent the statement to every board member along with a brief summary of Vanessa's exclusion from the will, just enough to raise eyebrows at her next brunch fundraiser. By the end of the week, 2 invites had mysteriously vanished from her calendar. And yes, I checked. Her public profile changed to survivor. Advocate, still standing. Which brings us to phase 4. I showed up at the house again 1 week after the funeral. This time, with 2 uniformed movers and a locksmith. She opened the door wearing full makeup and a silk blouse, like she was expecting a photo op, not a court order. "What is this?" she asked, narrowing her eyes at the 2 burly guys behind me. I handed her the papers. Official eviction notice. You've had 7 days. That's more than generous. You can't be serious, she said, voice trembling. I lived here. This was my life. I nodded. And now it's mine. She tried to laugh it off. This will backfire. You'll regret this. I looked her square in the eye. Vanessa, the only thing I regret is not buying popcorn before all of this started. She glared, paused. Then, in one last gasp of dramatic flair, she slapped me. No warning, no hesitation, just a full, open-handed, reality TV-worthy slap across the cheek. I didn't flinch. The movers did. I turned to them, still calm. Let's start with the upstairs closet, the one with the fur coats. Vanessa stood there, frozen. And then she said it. Low, bitter, desperate. You were always a little boy, Tyler. Just a scared little boy who needed Daddy's money to feel important. I stepped closer, not menacing, just firm. And you were always afraid he'd see through you. Then I turned my back on her and walked inside. She left the next day. No big scene, no final monologue, just a black SUV pulling out of the driveway early in the morning. I watched from the upstairs office window, the one Dad always used when he needed quiet. She didn't even slam the door. She didn't need to. She'd already lost everything. A week later, I moved in officially, cleared out the tacky decor, brought back the portrait of Dad, put his favorite records on the shelf. The ones Vanessa used to hide behind fake plants because they clashed with the vibe. I sat on the couch that night with a drink in hand, staring at the fireplace. It was quiet, just the sound of the crackling fire, and for the first time in a long time, the house felt like home again. It was a strange kind of peace, born from anger and sorrow, but a peace nonetheless.